Greetings, Dor here. The video in the background is still footage of Lucid. For further information, follow the link in the description. Now on to the topic at hand. Oscar Wilde's only novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, has been adapted into plays and movies dozens of times, some better, some worse, with the 2009 British cinema version, titled Dorian Gray, being the latest. To outline the story, the protagonist, a good-natured and somewhat naive young man, arrives in Victorian London to claim his inheritance, a noble property and considerable assets. There, he meets an artist, who, enthralled by his youth and beauty, insists on painting him, and a nobleman who soon seems intent on defiling the virtuous Dorian by introducing him to the hedonistic pleasures of society and his cynical, amoral and decadent worldview. Almost immediately Dorian is captivated by the lord's apparent freedom and charming eloquence. Being asked if he would contract with the devil to keep his youth, he responds that he would give his soul to always remain as the painting would. In a matter of few weeks, only minutes into the movie, signs of his success begin to show as Dorian quickly succumbs to all kinds of vice. He starts by beginning to smoke, soon after drinking, then visiting brothels, taking drugs and giving excessive parties while pushing the borders of his rising sexual appetite. Meanwhile, his outward appearance does not change the least bit. The painting as well as his portrait itself, however, show signs of age and decay. When there is nothing left for him to experience in London, he sets off to travel around the world in search of ever-surpassing pleasures. 25 years later, he returns, but things have changed. He is tired and wants to lead a normal life again when he meets his old friend's now grown-up daughter. Conceivably, the Lord is not happy to see his daughter being attracted to the man whom he knows to have taken a pact with the devil. Dorian tells him that he wants to change for her, but is not believed and eventually killed after telling his old friend that he has simply lived the life the Lord had preached, but never dared to act out himself. As reviews go, I have seen people complain about the movie not really showing how debauched Dorian actually is. Admittedly, the visuals are rather tame overall, but all that can be shown in a mainstream movie is there, including drug abuse, fetish practices, torture and murder. This may not be really shocking with horror films pushing the limits nowadays, but what else can you imagine? Everything has already been pictured at some point, and that point has been passed long before movies even came along. Now, there are still some considerable problems with all of this. As is well known, people do not appear on the outside as they are inside. No matter how cruel, malicious, arrogant, depraved or whatever you may be, character traits do not emerge physically. Looks might change based on drug consumption or age, but that was most likely not the author's intention when writing the story. I realize it's a mind game used as basis for philosophical considerations, but I think the idea is simply unconvincing in this context. It is still compelling, and you might have come across it in fantasy, especially pen and paper games in which spells exist doing exactly that, but that is something different. Another problem are said thoughts on morality, decadence and aestheticism that might have been in the novel, but hardly appear in the movie. It is the same problem with many mainstream films, but I see no reason why you should not be able to merge intellectual demand and ease of access, especially because there are examples proving that it is possible, the Oxford murders being one of my favorites. Link to the respective review can be found below. Issues with the screenplay are also that Dorian's narcissism is hardly noticeable, he gives in to the temptations too quickly, and his change of heart near the end is not convincing either. The very idea of a person changing their mind from being a cold-hearted, remorseless and self-serving murderer to caring husband will probably not happen, even if they once were just that. More importantly though, the actor wasn't able to properly convey the notion, and he was not really charming either. His looks, which I did not find particularly attractive, are a matter of taste, but portraying a self-righteous, arrogant and narcissistic person while still being charming and engrossing requires considerable acting skills which he did unfortunately not have. So in conclusion, this film is not more than a mediocre attempt at picturizing already overused literature and therefore probably superfluous, especially if you know better adaptations. I, however, do not, and even though I would have liked more intriguing dialogue, I found the story fairly interesting and the scenes of dissipation aesthetically pleasing, so it was okay for me.